This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first-step father, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins.
Hello one, hello all. Welcome to the podcast in which we obsess over the details in punk, hardcore, indie rock, emo, metal, whatever genre, subgenre. That's what we cover. That's what we have on the show. That's what we deeply care about and are influenced by it in a major way. And this week is a great chat with none other than Jack Shirley. He owns a recording studio up in the Bay Area called the Atomic Garden that has done a ton of great records, whether it's Deaf Heaven, Joyce Manor, Jeff Rosenstock. We talk a lot about those records and his process, which is super cool. I always love it when I am able to have, engineers or producers onto the show because, they have a unique perspective on documenting this music that we all listen to, like, forever. They're recording it, and then it's there. It's on a piece of vinyl, or it's on a 7-inch, or it's on a CD, or whatever it is. But he also played in the band Comadre, who is exceptional. I loved what Comadre did, and Jack has just been a staple up in that Northern California area. And we had a ton of mutual friends, and I just had a wild hair up my rear end, as people say, and I wanted to have him on the show. So we did it, and it was great. Let's talk about the ways that you can support the show because, truthfully, this show is free for you. You do not need to spend anything on this besides your time, and the time is very much appreciated. But you can leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or simply leave a rating on Spotify. Share the stuff on social media. Obviously, audio does not go viral. I'm not doing videos for this. I'm not pulling out clips. I'm just making this stuff available, and hopefully it finds the right people. And you can be an integral part of that. So appreciate that. You can also email me, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. Love to receive feedback, pitches, ideas for guests, whatever's on your brain. Please hit me up. Always love to have that feedback. And let's talk about weekly recommendations. And then I'm going to talk about some shows I've recently attended and little pontifications, as it were, before we dive into the conversation with Jack. But weekly recommendations. I have a running playlist that I keep updated, and I've been doing this for the better part of 2 years because one of the most substantial pieces of feedback that I receive from literally people in person, email, whatever it is, they like to know about music, whether it's a not trusting the algorithm, whether it's the fact I need to have that, being able to listen to new stuff or being able to be introduced to something that is old but is new to me. So there is a link in the show notes where you'll be able to access Apple Music playlist and a Spotify playlist. And that way, hopefully it kind of, introduces something to you. And the recommendation this week is a band called Fever Child. They're putting out a new record called Center of the Earth. That's out on March 20th on Sunday Drive Records. I love this band. Fever Child is basically exactly what, Mineral, Caulfield Records, everything that was happening in this sort of Midwest emo with, a mixture of some of the Southern California stuff, whether it's Game Face and, Sensefield, that sort of vibe. That's exactly what you're going to get with Fever Child. They're from Belgium, which gives it a whole unique perspective on that as well. But this is their second full length. They have 2 songs up now. It's exceptional. I just love this band, and I think more people need to pay attention to them because obviously, being in the United States, we pay attention to stuff that's right in front of our faces. And so sometimes we're not paying attention to stuff halfway across the world. So anyways, huge shout out to Fever Child. And if you like the music that is there, obviously the record will come out in March. But I highly recommend you listen to their first full length. The name escapes me right now, but it's a great body of work. So check out Fever Child and check out that playlist. Hit the link in the show notes and you will dive right into the playlist and follow along and hopefully get introduced to new music. I also wanted to talk about 2 specific musical experiences that I had this past week. One, I saw the Eagles at the Sphere in Las Vegas, Nevada. And the best way that I could describe it is this is the logical conclusion of live music because, and I mean that in a positive way, like the show was incredible. I mean, the Eagles are obviously part of America's songbook. I personally knew probably about like maybe 40% of the set. I'm not a hardcore Eagles fan. My son, who is a total boomer rock dude, loves the Eagles, knew 100% of the songs. And so it was obviously great to watch him interact and love every second of the music being played. But the visuals are unreal. The stadium is just incredible. 17,000 people. I've just never seen anything like it. Like, truthfully, if you ever get a chance to attend, and not like I need to be a shill for marketing the Sphere or whatever, but I highly encourage you to experience it in some capacity. Truthfully, even if you hate the music, you will just marvel at the spectacle of it and be like, wow, this is unbelievable. So, yeah, highly recommend that. It's well worth your time. And even though it's pretty expensive, we're talking tickets between like, $300 to $500, but it is well worth your time, especially if you enjoy the music that is happening there. Like, I think No Doubt's doing a residency. I know Kenny Chesney is doing a residency. The Eagles are still playing some gigs there. So whatever it is, go there and experience it in some capacity. And then on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, the next night I got to see Disembodied and Turmoil at Program here in Southern California, in Fullerton to be precise. They played Hellfest West, both of those bands. I was not able to attend the festival because I was literally in Vegas going to see the Eagles. But it was such a special show. I mean, both Turmoil and Disembodied are like, all-timers for me, like probably top 20, hardcore, metalcore bands, whatever you want to call them. And I was lucky enough to sing with Turmoil. They asked me to do a guest spot on it. I'm not saying that because that makes me cool, but I just felt like 16-year-old me would just be like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense, but it was awesome. The reason I bring up the show is because, for one, it's so cool that these bands can play these really intimate shows after playing a huge festival. And it just felt like watching them, in the 90s / early 2000s. It was so, so cool. And Disembodied has Mike Oleander, who is a previous guest of the show, used to sing for Endeavor, Burnt by the Sun, a ton of bands. He's singing for Disembodied now, and he sounds so good with them. It's incredible. So, and then Turmoil just completely demolished. And they're firing on all cylinders. I just like it when bands, come back and they take it seriously, because not only do they enjoy it, but they want to make sure that they're sounding good for, obviously, young kids who never saw them in the first place, and then people who saw them in their original iteration. But man, yeah, go, if you ever get a chance, go watch those bands in any setting and you will enjoy them. So shout out to live music, right? Great. Anyways, let's talk to Jack Shirley from Atomic Garden, and just a great dude. Love this conversation, so excited to bring it to you. Let's go.
The work that you've done with the Atomic Garden is obviously what, people know you for now. I mean,
Sure.
Definitely less on the Comadre side of things. I mean, people are still aware, but something that I've been impressed with in regards to your recording journey is that you've kept your studio and your work pretty accessible. Because I think that some people, tend to get to a different level, whether it's like, I'm only working with bands that have a budget of over $10,000 or
Right.
whatever. And it seems like that's something that's very intentionally baked into like either who you are as a person or who you are as a business person.
Absolutely.
Am I correct in that kind of approximation?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was just having a conversation about this before I walked in here. But and the conversation was that there's a misconception that I've kind of have gathered over the years that there's not as much accessibility as there is. People assume because there's been some popular records or whatever that like the rate's going to be crazy high, or that the calendar is going to be totally blocked out or whatever it is. And no, I try to keep it extremely accessible. Like, I mean, most conversations with bands start with just like, how much would you like to spend? And then we figure out from there, like, you can do anything in any amount of time. You know what I mean? I've had bands record and mix a record all in the same day because that's what they elected to do, and then at the same time, yeah, sometimes people come for 2 weeks or more or a month, or whatever. But so yeah, no, I've kept it extremely accessible forever on purpose, for sure.
Yeah. And is that just a function of it's probably both, like a function of who you are as a person because you come from playing in a band versus someone who is just focused on the business side of things?
No, it's both. I mean, or it's every reason, I guess. Like I really like working with young people. I like working with people that are like, that have more punk roots. And it turns out the people that can pay you $10,000 for a record, you might not like their style of working or even the music they're making or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just with that like DIY ethic and like low budgets and, I don't know. And the kinds of people and the kinds of music that come with that whole scene,
Mm-hmm. Something you said there, I think, is really cool and inspiring as well, where when you do continue to make yourself accessible to, bands that are recording their first 7-inch or demo or whatever, you're going to like experience a 17-year-old coming in that's like using language. You're like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's true.
Like,
It happens. It happened last week. Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I'm very happy to be part of that world because the other end of it, like, there's a lot of talk of like, or people assume that because of the couple things that got popular, for me, it's like, Death Heaven or Jeff Rosenstock or something. They assume that that's just what you do all the time. But it's like, there's, 100 bands between each of those that come in, and it's not like it's all walks and like full spectrum of, musical styles and all that stuff. And so like, and if you are the kind of person where it's like, it's over $1,000 a day or this or that or whatever, like those in between bands turned into like the like blues lawyer scene of like just old dudes with tons of money who like, they're not making anything worth hearing or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I would rather stop doing it than be part of that world. You know what I mean? So I'm super, super, like fortunate to be able to work on such a wide variety of stuff and keep with like kind of younger, hungrier, minds,
mm-hmm. And especially within the context of punk and hardcore, where, I mean, that's a young person's game. And I know that like everybody now can play in bands and do this stuff way later than anybody ever anticipated.
Sure.
But like, you're going to hear things that are coming out that like young bands are referencing stuff that was 30 years prior to them existing. And you're like, that's cool that you're like going all the way back.
For sure. No, that happens plenty. I mean, there was a young artist that I worked with a bunch who like, she was really into old like pop punk and grunge stuff and like things that I was into when I was a teenager. It was refreshing to feel relevant in that aspect, and also like and to be able to say like, oh yeah, I was there, then, and it is interesting, like that's people that are that young. Not only are they taking in all that older stuff, but then like all the current things as well. Like they're pulling from so much reference and inspiration and whatnot. It all, sometimes it turns into something really inspiring and new. I've been kind of surprised how much like off the shelf sound I've gotten from like young kids that are doing like revival type stuff like grunge or screamo or this or whatever. Some of it is just like, oh, this is like exactly what already happened. You know what I mean? Like we're not infusing anything new into this, but it's interesting to kind of witness that.
Yeah, I it is funny when you're talking about off the shelf nature, where you're just like, you literally could have placed this band into that time frame and no one would have batted an eye.
Yeah.
And it's like, it is weird how that, I mean, everything is full circle, but like, it is weird to have it reflected so closely back to you. That's just like, I wasn't anticipating that, but here we are with bands that sound like Orchid in ways that you just never thought anyone would want to sound like them at a certain point.
Absolutely.
So you're growing up, like you strictly Northern California, like where did you come up?
Yeah, There's about a 50-mile stretch between San Francisco and San Jose, on the west side of the San Francisco Bay. And I'm from basically right in between the two. So like Redwood City, San Carlos area. And yeah, that's where I grew up. And I've lived in the Bay my whole life. I lived briefly in Long Beach for about 3 months around year 2000. And I quickly decided it wasn't for me. A few of us moved down at once, and we all were like, all right, we got to get out of here. This isn't our scene. And so, but yeah, the studio started in San Carlos in my childhood home in the converted garage, kind of in-law unit. And then after about a year or two of that, moved to East Palo Alto in a warehouse, where I was for almost 13 years. And then, in 2018, the whole operation moved to, East Oakland, where I am now, where I'll probably die because this was a bigger endeavor. This is the kind of thing where like, yeah, I'm sitting in the chair that I'll die in right now because this is the end. So
yes, this is your lifetime's work here,
yeah,
right here.
Right.
Yeah. That area is so interesting, especially like when you start talking about independent music and like how all of that was kind of reflecting. Like I'll never forget where it's like my personal experience once I started to like go to shows in that area where it's like, the bands like Under a Dying Sun and like that whole Half Moon Bay area where I was just like, what is this? Like, this is so unique to this area, but then it's also reflective of the stuff that I was seeing in Southern California because you guys were like that area was pulling from, obviously the San Franciscos and stuff like that, but then you had to create your own scene as well. It's interesting.
We had a thing. Under Dying Sun is an amazing shout out to the past. So Dan from Under Dying Sun was my roommate for a super long time. Like when we got this East Palo Alto warehouse in 2006, Dan was running his screen printing shop out of the front of that space and was there for a long time. When I was like developing my musical identity, it was when like Under Dying Sun and like bands like Funeral Diner and all that were happening in the Bay, and it was a amazing time to be around. You made me think of something else that I was going to touch on, but it went away.
It's okay. Yeah, and I also like the pulling from like the Santa Cruz scene that was always so specific and unique because you had, the typical sort of straight ahead hardcore stuff, but then you had all of the like Ebullition Records adjacent stuff. Sure. And it was, again, I just felt I was like, wow, like playing the campus of, UC Santa Cruz or whatever. I was like, this is exactly the same as the Shea. And I'm like, this was obviously like in the infancy of the internet. So you only got little smatterings of it. But then once you actually were boots on the ground there, you were just like, oh, this is like their thing, but, similar to what I've experienced or whatever.
Yeah, that was a wonderful time. Oh, that was what I was going to tell you, actually, is that like kind of we were talking about making your own scene, like around when I started recording and like when right around when Comadre started, like there was that scene in Redwood City, like in the peninsula, about 30 miles south of San Francisco, was like overflowing with kids and bands, and like there was so much going on. Like Half Moon Bay, like San Mateo, Redwood City. There's a really good history there too. I mean, that's where like Portrait of the Past and like Spaz and whatever, but so many bands and like so much cool shit. But yeah, but the time when around 2002 to maybe like, I don't know, 2008, there was like a good local show was like 400 kids or something, and like and when we started touring and kind of making friends and connections and stuff, there were bands that were touring like national touring bands that were skipping over San Francisco to come play Redwood City because we were putting on these really good DIY shows and like in DIY spaces, and like it was a beautiful time. Somewhere around 2010, that all just kind of stopped existing in that area. I think everybody either moved or like aged out or whatever, but like even the studio was there until 2018, and like nobody was coming from the area anymore. It was like it was all San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley, Santa Cruz, San Jose, like, which is an amazing resource for a recording studio to have, like, to be able to touch all those areas and have people in all those areas. But that's kind of what's kept me alive, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. And I think that your proximity to so many different scenes, like you said, being able to record and document a lot of these things, but also to have participated in a scene and have a point of view in regards to like playing in a band and like putting on shows. Like not everybody has that sort of full circle experience of being like, I know what it's like to book a show. I know what it's like to record a band. I know what it's like to play. And like that probably gives you a pretty unique perspective.
Yeah, no, I feel fortunate to have been, touched on all that. Although, to be honest, I wasn't. I booked my first show like just a couple of years ago, and I probably won't do it again. I was never on that end of it. Like we had in our band, we had pretty kind of distinct roles, and I was not the booking guy. I was the recording guy. I was the sound guy. And like Kenny, the guitar player, was like the kind of PR guy, and he booked everything, and the singer Juan was kind of like artwork, and my brother did a lot of the label stuff when we were doing all this DIY business. He was, putting up money to print things, print records and shirts and all that. So it was cool to have to kind of have everybody have their lane. But so because of that, I only dabbled in some of the other things. I was mostly sound guy.
Right. Yeah. You were left in the sound guy corner, right? Well, but I think truthfully, I mean, that's why Comadre, in my opinion, was successful, because you guys had your different disciplines and you were able to, kind of Voltron come together as one unit. Because you've seen it before with so many bands where it's like you have maybe one or two people who are like super committed to it, and then the other people are kind of like in the orbit, and maybe they're not contributing very much, either creatively or booking shows or whatever. And those are the projects that are like much harder to kind of move forward.
Yeah, the ones that as fans you wish could get their shit together.
Right.
Yeah, like there's so many. Especially being on the recording end of it, so many bands over the years who have created amazing works of art, and then just like they'd never made it out to the world. You know what I mean? Like they might have played a couple shows, they might have put it out, but like nobody barely even knows it exists. I'm again fortunate enough to be like, I have an archive of all of it. Like I can refer to it whenever I want. But it is a shame that some of that stuff didn't get a wider audience.
Yeah, absolutely. They're actually, that just triggers, I was having a conversation with a friend for a band that was from that general area, that band Time in Malta. I don't know if you ever were familiar with them, but like
we played with them.
Yeah. And so it's just like a band that like, had some really quality output, especially like their earlier stuff. But yeah, we were just talking about, me and a friend who had played shows with them, were just like, yeah, like try to find their stuff, like beyond the physical medium. And it's just like, you can't anymore. And there are so many.
They were gone before it was like, before everything was kind of digitally made accessible.
Yeah, exactly. Especially their earlier stuff. It's like they put out one record on Equal Vision and like that's, accessible, but then everything else is like, oh yeah, Escape Artist Records. Like, no, they don't care digitally. It's fine.
Damn.
What was your entry point to kind of that, independent music, like punk and hardcore? I know you said like grunge was a touch point for you, but how were you kind of discovering stuff?
Oh, I don't know. I've been playing in bands since I was a teenager, but like I grew up on like skate punk stuff from like skate videos and things like that. So I was really into like, early high school, I was into like a lot of Epitaph Records, Fat Records kind of stuff. Like that's probably what I was like brought up on the most. I mean, my studio is named after a Bad Religion song,
Sure.
And so that was probably my entry point. And then kind of playing in bad pop punk bands and whatever. And then when I really feel like I became more part of a scene was like early 2000s, starting to kind of like do my own stuff, I guess. Like there was a band, my brother and I were in Comadre together with another pair of brothers. And we each pair had a band that played together, before Comadre. And those bands both kind of stopped at the same time, around 2003. And then we got together to see if we could hit it off, and we did. And so, but yeah, that was, I don't know, from like, early high school, like 96, 97, kind of getting a footing. And then about 2000 was where shit kind of clicked.
I love welcoming new sponsors on the show. And today is our friends at Iodine Recordings, because they are re-releasing Quicksand's Manic Compression, which is clearly one of the most influential post-hardcore records of the 90s. It is so important to me, and I am so glad that this is coming out again for the 30th anniversary, and this is the definitive edition of this thing. It's remastered for vinyl from the original 1995 tapes. It's housed in a deluxe gatefold jacket that features expanded artwork, and of course, there's limited edition vinyl variants that look so freaking cool. And on top of all of that, they have a limited edition 64-page hardcover book that chronicles that whole era of the band. It includes a foreword by Walter Schreifels, never-seen photos, and a ton of ephemera from around that band's time, plus writings from bands like Knocked Loose, Coheed and Cambria, Newfound Glory, Bane, Drug Church, Glassjaw, Touche Amore, and a ton more. This thing is wrapped with a soft-touch cover that feels like a really, really high-quality art book. Trust me. Iodine Recordings knows what they're doing in regards to these reissues. I've got them from other records in the past, and this one is just as beautiful as all those. So if Manic Compression meant something to you, or if this is your first time ever being like, you know what, I probably should buy this Quicksand record, do it now. Go to iodinerecords.com. It's something that I'm sure you've noticed in your travels and working with bands, in different parts of the world, where there is something that is so in the water with our California experience of like getting all your lagwagons and no use for names like delivered to us. And like other people like have, clearly those bands are popular, but like it is so, I was literally listening to Lagwagon like 2 days ago, and I was just like, Trash is just brilliant. It's like unbelievable.
Yeah. I think Justin and I maybe were talking about how relevant and how well the Operation Ivy record holds up over time. And like, from 87 or whatever to now, that's crazy. That's going to be 40 years old next year.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
But it's still so good. And like, I still will happily put that on, but that was some of the earliest stuff that I was exposed to. And it stuck for sure. But then it was, I think, the time where I felt like I was making like my own music for the first time, like for real, was very inspired by like, I don't know, Thursday and Refused and like, I don't know, bands like Converge or whatever else, like some mixture of all that stuff. But, and that ended up coming out sounding like Comadre basically. But, what a time. That was 20 plus years ago.
I know and I think with the point of me bringing up like the pop punk stuff where it's like people from different parts of the country react to it very differently, where they're just like, wait, you liked that at one point? Right. It's like, of course we did.
I still like it. I'll put on Bad Religion in the car, and my lady's eyes roll all the way around to the back of her head, and she's from Southern California, and she's just like, what is this?
Yeah. Why are you still listening? Right. Yeah. And then it's like people you talk to, like, a friend from Connecticut or whatever, and they're just like, what are you talking about? You listen to that on the regular. It's like, well, yeah, that's part of our DNA.
Part of the fabric, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you, like you said, you were playing in bands in high school and everything. Did you get drawn like right away to documenting that and, your recording stuff, or was that kind of a little bit later as you started to play in bands?
There was like the glimmer of it really early on of like I would say DIY, all caps, underlined twice, about like the approach to like, let's make a demo, where like I didn't know anything about anything, but we had all this equipment laying around, and it was like, well, we can make a demo. And like, what we did now, like if a band recorded like this in the studio, they would be considered like fucking, like big time player, kind of like rarefied air. But we recorded, the technical term is called live to 2-track, where you're not only is the recording 100% live, but you're also mixing it like as you're recording it
in real time, right?
Yeah, in real time. So like, instead of using like a 4-track or an 8-track like a normal person would, like, because I hadn't been exposed to any of that yet, like in high school, it was like, oh, okay, well, if we string these PA systems together that we've got, and then have the final stereo out land on like my tape deck in my room, I can just hit record, and we have a demo. Like, it's mixed, it's tracked, it's done. And so that's what we did. We mic'd a bunch of stuff up in my childhood home, there's like a hallway with a couple rooms off of it, and we used that for like isolation, basically, to like drums went in a room, and like a bunch of cabinets went in, speaker cabinets went in another room, and like the bathroom was the control room, and then like the rest of us stood in the hallway to play while like everything was isolated and everybody's in their own little room. And so we had this like fully isolated, like pretty, decent quality thing that was being, again, printed. The left-right mix was being printed live as we were playing the thing. So you'd record a little bit, then you'd go into the bathroom and listen back, and then like and be like, oh, the drums are way too loud. So you try to make a couple adjustments, and then go back and do another take or whatever. And like that's how we did our demo. And so that was probably 96 or 7. And then I got like from there, it was like, okay, well, maybe we should go to our friend who records, or we should go to this like local studio where they record for other bands. And I did that for a handful of years. And by the time 2003 rolled around, I guess it was maybe 5 years of like trying it outside. And by the time 2003 rolled around, I was like, you know what? I think I could do this myself. Like, I think we could get this middleman out of the equation. Cause like you hit enough of those scenarios where like either somebody's doing not as good of a job as you hope they would, or they're like telling you how to do your thing. And you're just like, I just want to do this thing. You're like, I don't, maybe it is the wrong way, but like, if we're interested in just doing it this particular way. And so that's when the kind of stars aligned for me anyway, where Pro Tools had just become like commercially available, or not commercial, or like available to the consumer public. Like it had just happened where you could have just a PC at home and a little interface and the software. And a good buddy of mine worked at our local music shop in the pro audio department. He taught me how to use Pro Tools. And that was the end. I mean, like once I got it, we were in the middle of like finishing a record that I hadn't recorded it, but I had, we had kind of DIY'd our way through and like tracked some basics with a friend, did some overdubs with the drummer of the band who had just gotten Pro Tools also. And then it was mixing time, and the mixing was going, in my opinion, terribly. And I was like, we got to do this. Let me get this and let me see what I can do with it. And I mixed that record like completely trial and error. And the guitar player in me, who's like, you tweak knobs all the time trying to get your tone just a certain way or whatever. I knew like, I know how I want this thing to sound. I don't know how to do it, but like, I know the sound I'm chasing. And so by the time I mixed this record, which took a ton of, tries, by the time I was done, I was totally hooked. I was like, this is it. Like, I'm going to do this like for real, And so, and within a couple of years of that, we built the studio in East Palo Alto, and like, that was that. I quit my job. I did, finished school, moved out, got this warehouse space. Like, that was that.
That's awesome. I love the wresting control of, just the recording process in general, because I think, especially at that time too, you still had so many, producers, engineers who really had no experience whatsoever in dealing with, hardcore, aggressive music. Like they were just like, they kind of understood it. They were like, but then they were like, is it meant to sound like that?
They didn't know what to do with it. I can tell you though, as an engineer, coming full circle, like all you need to do with it is like AC/DC Back in Black, like just fucking balance it all like this and it'll sound right. But like, right. As it turns out, like they figured it out. They figured it out in 1980, just apply these principles and like, it'll totally work. But yeah, for some reason, some old school engineers or whatever, they could not, like manage all the kind of noise and chaos of it, and didn't know what to do with the volume of it all. And like, it's really not that complicated, from a technical standpoint. But that being said, I still fight it all the time though. Like, hey, do you have to use your cymbals so much? Like it's really making my job hard. So I get it, like, as cool as it is to make noise and be chaotic, like in the end, like, the engineers, they wished that there wasn't so much white noise all the time. It makes for a more like dynamic experience, but I understand.
Right. And so when you, when Comadre started and obviously putting out records and, touring and everything like that, I mean, you did a substantial amount of touring. Like, did you find that you personally took to it well? I mean, you obviously did it for a large period of time, but, were you, I guess, cut out for the road? Or was it like, I like some of this, but a lot of this I don't like.
I loved it. I was like, it was also, I think for all of us, I was the oldest by like a few years. But for me, it was like, it was a perfect time in my life to do it, to be able to leave for months at a time or whatever. We'd all been pretty hungry for it, like in our previous bands, but like couldn't get it together either with personnel or just like contacts or whatever it was. We didn't have that thing where everybody had their own role and the drive to do whatever. So, and again, it's kind of just like the stars align kind of thing. Like we had friends that we had made friends and played shows with bands from out of town. And it was like, oh, you're from out of town. Like we should come play with you in Portland or like Riverside or whatever. And like started kind of just like venturing out little bits. But, I think we all took to it and like really, really loved it. And, we did it for, a better part, like almost 10 years. But it wasn't, I will say this, we seemed to strike a really good balance of not, blowing up our personal lives. Like I saw a lot of bands, friends, that would end up touring like 9 months out of the year. And they basically had no lives when they got home. They had nowhere to work. They had nowhere to live. They had no money. Cause like that kind of touring only sustains itself while it's happening, if you're lucky. But we would do the kind of thing where we'd leave for a month and then we'd come home for a few months, and then we'd leave for a month and come home for a few months. So everybody just happened to kind of have jobs that they could leave, and people were cool and like, or whatever, and some people were in school and like we'd go around school schedule and all that stuff. So, it was fucking awesome. I mean, I took a long break from it, and actually Justin Smith kind of got me back in the last couple of years. I've been subbing in, with Sweat on tour for about 18 months. And it was really cool. I got to go to a bunch of places I hadn't been in like, 10, 15 years and see a bunch of folks that I hadn't seen in a really long time. So, and I was reminded of how much I missed it. And, I do like staying home now, but I really did like do all that stuff while we were doing it for sure. And I'm cut out for it for sure. Sleeping on floors and long rides in vans and all that shit and smelling like fucking garbage and,
Sure.
Yeah, it was a great time.
It does. Like, I mean, the reason I ask that is not like, I mean, yes, it's a loaded question, but it's also one of those things where it's like people's relationships with that type of touring obviously changes over time.
Yeah.
But some people right away know it's like, oh, I'm not cut out for this. Like, not because I'm like weak or I can't handle it, but it's just like, this is not my personality. I'm an introvert and I just want to stay in the van the whole time. It's like, well, is this really good for you? I don't think so.
That's fair. I mean, there was anxiety inducing moments. Like you'll be in like, on a full US tour, which seems to happen less and less these days. People do a lot of flying over and just like week here, week there. But on a full US tour where you're gone for like 5 weeks, you'll be in like DC at like a gas station bathroom and like walk by a map and see where you are and go like, oh my God, like we are really far away. Like it's going to take, even if we quit right now, it would take a week to get home. Like there's moments like that where it's like, oh fuck, we're really out doing this thing. But for the most part, yeah, I think we were all pretty cut out for it, and until we weren't. I mean, that's why the band stopped, like dudes had to go have lives. So, I guess
not everything can revolve around the band. It's like, oh yes, like there are other extenuating circumstances that people have to tend to, like, literally their lives.
Like having a wife and kids or whatever it might be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. We are so excited to talk about our friends at rockabilly.com because they first want to give you 10% off your order by using the promo code 100 words or less. But on top of all of that, they are an amazing merch purveyor of all officially licensed stuff from bands like punk, hardcore, metal, indie rock. We're talking mainstream rock, mainstream hip hop. I guarantee you that if you go to their website, you will be shocked. So as you and I'm going to put your brother into this because your parents, they sound obviously like gems of humans because allowing you to completely take over the house and, dominate recording and all this sort of stuff. How were they reacting to you getting into this stuff that they probably had no context for? I mean, clearly they allowed you to do it, but, was there just like, well, I guess Jack is into this stuff, so I guess we'll just let him ride with this?
they're not as supportive as you would have thought, or
Okay.
they weren't as supportive as you would have thought. So like,
Okay.
like the scenario where we took over the bedrooms in the back, hallway, whatever, that was like one day while they were out of town. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't
Perfect.
that wasn't the regular,
Right.
And by the time it was touring time, I was in my early 20s already. So it wasn't like, oh, you can't go do this, like, oh, we're leaving for a month, we'll see you later. Yeah, they like early on, my parents are probably the two like least art minded people I've ever known in my life. You know what I mean? Like not into music or movies or art or anything. So they didn't understand it. They were into like financial stability and like saving money and like being whatever. And so, from maybe around 15, 16, when I got into like buying equipment, musical equipment and things like that, they were super anti. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You're throwing your money away. Like, what is all this? Like, you know what I mean? Like this is, anyway. But I don't know. They had instilled a lot of like independence in me and my brother. We had, jobs when we were like 14. We saved up money. We bought guitars, that was what we wanted to do with our fucking money. So, yeah, they were not into it. And even when I started to do the studio, I was in college for, illustration at the time. And I wanted to quit to pursue recording because that was the thing I thought about every day when I woke up, And so, but I kind of begrudgingly finished school. I finished a little early even. I was supposed to get more of an advanced degree, but I was like, oh, I have enough credits. If I could quit right now, I could just graduate and have a degree and be done with this. Which is what I did. And moved out and went and built the first, the real, the first real studio. But, they were not stoked on it. And they were kind of like, I remember my dad being like, giving me the like, when are you going to grow up and give up all this music stuff? This isn't getting you anywhere. So they let it happen, but like, not in a super encouraging kind of way,
Sure. And that's totally fair. And usually, to your point, like that sort of protection comes from parents where they're just like, I'm just concerned about you ending up in a gutter somewhere or whatever. It's like, yeah, they didn't understand it.
They did. I mean, like there was about a year and a half where I was, or maybe 2 years, where I was essentially running a recording studio out of the like garage extension of their house. It was removed enough that it wasn't that crazy, but it was like this, big loud rumbling of noise all the time because it did get busy there for a minute. But so yeah, I'm thankful I had a place to at least get started. But when it was time to go, we were all ready.
Right. Yeah. Like, I got to get out of here and I know you want me out of here.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Your work ethic and your drive, like you were saying, getting a job at 14 and as a person who has like, known of you and has observed your work from a distance, it seems like you enjoy that aspect of it. Was that just kind of like hardwired in you, or was that something that like you learned that putting more of yourself into something, results can come back pretty quickly?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt there was like a heavy work ethic instilled as early as possible. But that being said, like the work itself is so fulfilling and never ending. Like it's the kind of pursuit that you're never really good enough at for your own self, And so, but there's enough gradual progression that it kind of keeps you moving along. It's like the carrot on the stick kind of thing. So yeah, like as much as I'd like to be like, yeah, man, I'm all about busting my ass. Like it really is like a self winding kind of situation where like you get, whether it's the gear or the fucking, the craft itself or like, just the idea or the paranoia of being self-employed and being, like not wanting to say no to anybody because like you never know when shit's going to dry up, So there all those things at once, like it makes it like, even on my days off, I want to come to the studio and like sit here and like fuck around with something, you know what I mean? Like, or learn how something works a little bit more or whatever. So, yeah, I have found a good balance of like when people are in the studio versus when they're not, and like how to schedule all that kind of shit. And like half my work these days is mixing other people's recordings that I didn't record. And so like that's time in the studio where I'm just by myself and I can do whatever schedule I feel like, or you know what I mean? So and I have a hard out at 6 p.m. every day also, which is like a big deal. It didn't used to be like that. Somebody, Trey from Bon Iver, reminded me of when they were in the studio. He was like, yeah, let's go till midnight. And I was like, dude, I would never, ever do that again. Like now, I like that. I didn't remember it. Like I'd put it out of my mind. So yeah, it's like there's all sorts of balance and shit going on, but it is the kind of thing that like I don't think I'd ever get tired of doing it. It's really, really a wonderful thing to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And I think that's personally like reflected, my observation is reflected in the work that you do, just because, yes, there is the wide scope of records that you've worked on, but it's just like that hustle usually only comes from people. I mean, yes, of course, the financial pressures of being like, well, yeah, I got to do this because I have to pay the bills and the overhead. But like you said, there's that inspiration that comes from you wanting to be involved in this thing. And like, you're not going to say no because you're like, this record sounds great. I'm like, yeah, I'd love to mix it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's another, I guess that's a tricky thing about it all too, or like trying to balance it all, or like learn to say no, or how to pace the calendar out and all that stuff, is that you might have something that looks really nice and balanced in like the months coming. And then somebody who's like a super good friend whose band is amazing says like, oh, hey man, we got to get in there like, soon. Do you have time? And like, you never would you say no to something like that, so these things still happen, today, but how I can't complain about that. It's a privilege.
Yeah. Champagne problems, as they say.
Fucking A. Yeah.
When do you feel like you were talking about with your, people coming to you because they're like, oh, I love the work you did with Def Heaven or Jeff Rosenstock or, Joyce Manor. When do you feel like, and it could be, multiple answers, but like the different times where you felt like certain things leveled up for you, whether it was like your own experience where you're like, wow, now I know how to do that a lot better because of this record, or the attention that was paid from the music industry, broadly speaking, to be like, hey, let's talk to this Jack Shirley kid. He can record some bands for us or whatever. You can hold that multitude of ways, but like, when do you feel like those, I guess, either records or steps were taken for you to like get to those different levels?
That's awesome. That's a great question. I don't know. Well, okay. The short answer is like, it all snowballs. You know what I mean? Like it's all like building and building over time. Like my skill gets better, the studio gets better, like maybe the gear gets upgraded. Maybe when I first bought a tape machine, I noticed that was a leap forward, or like, but as that all happens, the bands are getting better and like, and maybe they get popular and then they inspire other bands to contact you and whatever it is. But I would say, probably around like 2010, 2011, 12, somewhere in there. I feel like that was a big kind of time. And that was when I feel like the recording started getting like pretty good. And the clientele kind of was like some of the kind of staple folks that were recording, like they were getting more popular and returning, which is not always a given, like you mentioned, obviously Def Heaven and Jeff Rosenstock are the two things that come up whenever we're talking about my life, because they are the most popular people I've worked with. But the fact that they came to me for almost 10 years straight, both of them, is fucking crazy. And Jeff in particular, like it's not just Jeff, it's Jeff and like a ton of fans who love those records, who then want me to work on their record. Or it's like, I've worked with Jeff, where he's producing other people's records, where I'm brought on as an engineer or a mixer or doing mastering or whatever. Like that's fucking awesome. Jeff also spent many years working for a Cartoon Network show, doing the scoring in the recording of the music. And they did a feature length film a couple of years back. And we did the score here for like a month with like an orchestra and like tons of hired musicians and all that shit. It's wild. Like the journey that just knowing Jeff has taken me. I cannot be thankful enough for that, like that one connection. And that was about 10 years ago, actually. So that was 2015. But yeah, all that shit. it definitely is a cumulative thing,
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting for you too, like you said, the snowball effect, because much of what the work that you do is
Oh, I
clearly
lost you
so
for a
early
sec.
on in the process, where it's like you'll record a
Can you say it again?
Sorry, I was saying so much of the work that you do is so early in the process. Like you're recording a record in 2010 that's not going to come out till maybe 2012 or whatever.
Oh,
And
right.
so the work that you're doing is you're not going to see the benefits of it until much later. And then
Yeah.
that's when you're like, oh, now it's happening.
Sure. And thankfully the turnarounds aren't that long. Like it's
Yep.
usually 6 months to a year, between record's done, record is now public, sometimes less. Like people, some of the bands that like aren't dealing with labels and stuff like that, like their record might be out the next week. And I've always been surprised by that kind of stuff. Like I'll be doing something that I think is going to be a nothing thing, like doing somebody's demo, like, oh, I don't know if anybody, like, it's really good and we had a good time, but like I don't know if anybody will hear that. And then all of a sudden, I mean, that's what Death Heaven was, to be honest. Like it was a band, I had recorded their previous band that was kind of like a convergy, kind of like metallic hardcore thing, and those Carrie and George came in to do this like side thing, like a demo, and they had a drummer doing them a favor, like playing on the demo, and they even felt weird about showing their hardcore buddies this new thing they were doing that was kind of shoegazy and kind of whatever. So like I thought it was going to just be some, oh yeah, they did a side thing, cool. And then before I know it, that demo we did, like Deathwish is putting that out, like in 10 years ago, it was like, oh shit. And it just, but there's been other records like that where like I did a demo for somebody and then it's like on Pitchfork like weeks later as like some new artist to look out for. So it is cool how that stuff can come out of nowhere, but it also like instills in you like, oh, we got to take it all seriously. You know what I mean? Like you never know who you're working with and like where it might go. So yeah, but that's good because quality control.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And it's like that you never, just in the way that I think many of us can look, us who are older, I'm putting, you and I in the same category.
Sure, yeah.
I'm slightly older than you, but just like the idea that like certain music, either comes back around or pops, online in ways that you're just like, wow, didn't expect that to happen at all.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now a band is like forced to reform because they're, streaming super well. And then you're just like, wow, it's a good thing I didn't like completely botch that recording or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, and the opposite has happened where like something got really popular. We're like, oh fuck, we should have spent a little more time on that. Like, oh boy, like I didn't realize this was going to be that wide of an audience. But whatever, you learn and you adapt.
Right. And you obviously don't control those things as well, where it's just like, once the art is out there, then that is what it is. And, we thought at that time that was what was needed.
That's right.
I'm always thrilled to talk about our friends at evilgreed.com because they are an amazing purveyor of heavy music, merchandise, and records. But before I tell you about why you need to order from them, use this promo code HISTORY. It's a limited time code that gets you 10% off of your first order. So do it right now, because if you wait a couple weeks and then try this code, it will not work. HISTORY is the promo code. And trust me, when you want the easiest place to buy from bands like, Knocked Loose and Speed, or maybe you're into black metal like Spectral Wound, or if you're like, hey, how about some drone stuff like Sun? That's just a little taste of what they have to offer at evilgreed.com. They ship worldwide, and even though they're based in Berlin, Germany, the shipping rates to us in the United States are very cheap and advantageous. Trust me in saying that evilgreed.com will blow your mind. And then you'll follow them on Instagram because they share really, really cool content. Like I just saw a video that they shared on 4 influential straight edge hardcore records. And sometimes these are things that, you're just like, oh, dude, I know what they're going to talk about. And then they start to show the Path of Resistance record and you're just like, oh, I wasn't expecting that cut. But that's the sort of stuff that Evil Greed does. I love them. You should love them too. And use the promo code HISTORY for 10% off of your first order. And go now. No time like the present. Let's go. Your own personal tastes, because the reason I'm digging into this is because, as a engineer, producer, mixer, all like you clearly can't, like 100% of the projects you say yes to, you can't personally like. Right. And that's a decision that once you start to work in the music industry, whether it's, record label or whatever, like you're not going to always make the decision like, oh, my taste is the best and everybody else can't listen. When did you kind of start to be able to balance those ideas? Not saying that like, okay, a majority of what you record now is like, you hate the stuff. I'm not saying that, but, how did you kind of like start to calibrate your own taste in response to the stuff that was like coming your direction? Or was that not a problem ever?
It's not a problem. And it's worth mentioning that like, I don't screen I don't say no to people that want to come record. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
like anybody that wants to come record can come record. The only thing that can get me to say no to a project is if they don't want to record live. So bands that don't want to record live, I politely tell them they should just go someplace else because I'm not their guy. But what that ends up kind of funneling down to is what I really like when it comes to working on music is just energetic music. It doesn't even matter what genre it is. Like energetic, organic music, captured organically, like that's my shit. And it doesn't matter if it's like an R&B band or a metal band or whatever, like or jazz or whatever it might be. Like if it's done with a little bit of fire and like in a way that like that's what gets me excited about working. So my musical taste is super varied and wide, and I can enjoy anything given like some qualifiers, I guess. But yeah, the live thing is like a big deal for me, and it's the hill that I will most certainly die on, because it's like I just because I've seen the downsides of doing doing it the other way. And I just don't believe in it as a process. And like, I think it ruins the music, and like it takes forever and it's super tedious and painful. And so, yeah. But what's funny is this has happened dozens of times where like I get hit up by a band who says, "Hey, we really like the records you make. These ones in particular. And like, we'd love to come make a record with you." And then I tell them how we make records here typically. And they're like, "Oh, well, we don't want to do that. That's crazy." And it's like, well, the records you like, like all the records you just mentioned are just a bunch of people in a room without headphones, like their amps and their drums and the whole shit, like just playing their songs. And people are like, "Whoa, dude. Like, you're blowing my mind." Like that literal sentence has been said enough times that like it's stuck in my head, but it really is that easy. And all you have to do is practice and be a good band, and like, and you're off to the races, and you're gonna have a painless recording experience.
Right. I honestly, I did not know that about you, but I love that not only for you, because it is, like you said, a self-selection process, but then you can have open and honest conversations with people where you're just like, yeah, this isn't the right fit. And that's totally fine. Like, go with a person that's recording out of their apartment, just doing guitars for this, and then we'll punch you in and do that. Like, that's fine. That's someone else. That's not me.
Totally. And I have like, just recently, like there was somebody that hit me up that I'd worked with, and like we had done a record the way that I prefer to do it, and they wanted to do it the other way. And I was like, "Hey, you should do that. Just not here, like not with me. Like I don't go." So where we're at here, there's 2 studios, and Scott Evans of Anti-Sleep Audio is on the other side, and Scott has no problem recording you like that. Go record with Scott. Scott's fucking amazing, like, and he has the patience for this, and I just don't. So also, another, like, the live thing is the one thing that I'm married to. Tape is the other thing. Like, so live to tape are my 2, like we really, really should do it this way. And if there's a good reason to not do it, I'm all ears, and I will, like, there's plenty of exceptions to that situation. But like a band that's all present in the studio together, if they're not recording at the same time, like I'm not interested at all.
Right.
So
yeah. I just, it's when people, especially in the day and age where, from the producer side of things, just like give you a little context, like I manage a few producers. And so like I get in conversations with people very similar to like what you're having, where they're coming to these producers for a reason and their thing. And then the moment that you like tweak their expectation, they're just like, "Wait, but no, I don't want to do it that way." You're just like, "Well, then why are we talking?" Like, sorry.
Yeah.
But that notion of what you're talking about, where you're selling a specific thing, i.e. your process and the way that you work. And truthfully, like where you probably pivot people to either towards Scott from the, piece
Yeah.
by piece, or you're just like, I can just mix the record. You
Right.
can record it the other way and then I'll mix it.
And that's happened for sure. And like, in the like, speaking on the process for a sec though, as much credit as I would like to take for like what it's ended up being, it's really all born out of necessity. You know what I mean? Like most people don't even have enough money to do it the way they want to do it. You know what I mean? Or time or whatever. So like it started out of necessity of like, hey, we don't have a lot of time. Let's just get in there and record. But then it turned out that like it happens to also be my preferred way of doing it. But the silver lining is it saves tons of time. It saves tons of time. It sounds better. Everybody's way less in their head about what they're doing because they're all doing it together. Like, it's the analogy that's often given is like, you don't go to band practice and like, be like, all right, drums, play your part for this song, like, okay, cool. Like bass, let's hear what you're going to do. You play the song. It's a song. So yeah, it is definitely something that like that's part of what allows me to be like, hey, just you tell me how much money you can spend and how much and I'll tell you how much time that equals, and we'll get it done in that amount of time because it's possible. For some people, some bands record drums, bass, two guitars, and vocals, all keeper shit live at the same time. And then we'll do some punch-ins, we do some overdubs or whatever, but like the vocals live thing is less common, but when it happens, it's very special. And like Gouge Away, the last Gouge Away record we did is like almost 100% live. Like there's overdubs and like ear candy type stuff, and like there's some punch-ins to fix some mistakes here and there, but like the majority of what you hear is just a band playing in the studio, and it's why it sounds the way it does. It's like, it's hard to replicate.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes too, it's an artifact of a different time or a different era, because like there's, as you well have experienced and seen, especially in independent music, bands, and this is not just like to talk crap, but like bands and managers and like they get very uncreative where they're just
Right.
like, oh, everyone's recording with this person, so we got to record with this person.
Right.
And it's that like 5 to 6 year cycle where everybody rushes to record with this person.
Right.
And then their schedule is booked out for 2 years. And then all of a sudden they kind of fall out of like, I'll use a specific example, not because like he does bad work or he burnt himself out, but like, Brian McTiernan, where it was like between the eras of like 98 to 2000, whatever, 6 or 7, it was like everybody had to record with him.
Right.
And it was because they wanted obviously his thing. But then it's like, there are other people that are doing just as good of a job, if not arguably better in certain circumstances that you need to look at. And so anyway, the reason I mentioned that is like, how have you, I guess the longevity piece of it, because you're like, I, don't want to just record 70 demos in a year. It's like, I'd like to work on records. Like, how do you kind of view trying to stay away from that sort of cycle of the people
The
wanting
fad.
to work with you?
Fad
Exactly.
I think again, this is just kind of, it just happens to be like this, but I think recording the way that I do, the end result is pretty timeless in terms of the way it sounds. Like some of these recordings, like they really hold up because it's like it feels super organic, and there's less of like, you can't point to it and be like, oh, that was recorded in 2005. You know what I mean? Because there is that stuff that's like, it's very much of a time and like kind of suffers from whatever the fads of that time were. Everybody's using drum samples or whatever, or like, oh, this is really fucking auto-tuned. But like, recording a band live to tape is what they did in the mid 60s and the mid 70s and the mid 80s and the mid 90s or whatever. And like, it just has especially as people are doing more and more like throwback music too, it just feels appropriate to me, like, and when I hear the records, even dude, I hear some records from 10 years ago and I'm like, fuck, why does that sound better than the record I did like, this week? Fuck. So I think that like the honesty and like organic quality of it, I think makes it like not go out of style. It's like for the most part, a lot of these records just sound like a band playing in a room. So with the exception of some of them have been pushed so hard with distortion and whatever else that like they get a little stylistic, but it's still like it's a kind of stylistic that doesn't feel like too contrived. It's analog distortion, like, it's again, it's been happening since the 60s. So I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, you don't need to reinvent that wheel.
Mm-hmm.
How do you personally view, like building trust with the bands? I mean, clearly they're already like in the can for you because they're obviously reaching out because they want to work with you. But, you need to establish yourself as a person who can be a creative voice in the room and be able to offer, opinions and stuff like that. And like I said, a lot of that is sort of already built into that experience. But how have you, I guess, flexed that muscle and developed that part of your process to be able to be like, no, like, trust me, guys, like I'm doing this. Like I've been doing this for a while.
Yeah. It's tricky, I mean, I am more of an engineer than a producer, really. And so the only thing I'm ever trying to convince somebody of is to try to just like capture a performance more honestly or whatever. You know what I mean? Like nothing. Although lately, the thing I've been trying that I've been like really stoked on that I'm like reluctant to talk people into is like trying like making the process even more old school. Like, hey, what if we did the whole record on like 8 tracks, like that sort of thing. Like that's the territory where I'm reluctant to talk somebody into it. Cause I kind of know I can talk them into it cause I'm excited about it. And like, I can like be like, oh, listen to these other records we did just like this and like whatever. But I have reservations about that because it's like, well, I can talk you into it, but I can't guarantee you're going to be totally stoked on the process in the end. Although, even though I have been, but anyway, that's a sidebar, I guess. But like, so there's not a lot of me like selling shit necessarily, like, or like we never have time to like pick apart somebody's song. That's where they get like, where people kind of get like, whoa, like don't produce like that. But so I'm mostly reassuring people that like, yeah, you can all just get in the room without headphones and without a click track and just play your songs. And I bet you're going to be stoked, and like, thankfully that only takes about an hour to try. So if it goes horribly for some reason, which it never does, cause like you're a band, you know how to play your songs, but like you could totally pivot and be like, oh, okay, well, this isn't the way. Like, let's put the amps in a closet. Like, let's do some isolation or whatever it might be. The click track thing might be the thing that I've talked most people out of. That like that can be a hard sell, especially if there's a drummer who's just like will not hear it. Even if they're not playing to the click correctly, they're like so married to the idea of it being there. And sometimes you'll be tracking something and you kind of bring the click track up a little bit enough to hear it. And it's like, whoa, how is this person even playing along to this? You know what I mean? Like, and not just derailing what they're doing. And you try to be like, hey, I don't think this thing's doing you any favors. Like, why don't we try one without it? And they're like, no, we got like, it helps me like stay on. And I was like, I don't know. Okay, fine. So you gotta just feel the room out, like, and sometimes you'll say something like that. You see 4 other heads in the band nodding like, yeah, make them turn it off, then you know to kind of push it. But then other times, when to just like, you can tell when people want feedback and when they don't, and it's just like, and honestly, I've talked to Scott about this a lot. Scott has more of a, personal connection with the quality of the music that's being played. I have zero personal connection with that. Like, I think if a band is bad, like, I have no problem documenting that. You know what I mean? Like, if your band is bad and you're not open to, whatever couple little nuggets
practicing,
practicing, or some adjustments in the moment that might help us,
right.
Or everybody's trying to overplay and like the suggestion is like, hey, maybe don't do that fill, that makes you stop the song every take, maybe something simpler. If they don't want any feedback like that, it's like, hey, I have no problem with you guys like muddling your way through this and like the world hearing what your band actually sounds like, like we're not going to get in there and like surgically correct everything. Like, that's just not my shit. So yeah, like if however it goes, I'm usually fine with my role of like either help steer the ship or just like let it kind of go adrift and let it be what it is. Like I don't know, I'm okay with all that.
Sure. 2 last like sort of fun questions as far as just like your own opinion on these things.
Sure.
Every studio has their crown jewel of being like, oh, this is like, people love the, hangout room. People love the, like, oh yeah, we got Super Nintendo in here or whatever, like when you're not recording. What would you pitch as your, special feature or something that obviously a lot of people who are not recording, I know you are obviously recording live to tape and
Sure.
there's not a lot of downtime there, but there is downtime.
Sure.
So what do people, or in your opinion, or what have you noticed people being attracted to when they are hanging out in the studio?
That is a super good question. I don't know how much it applies here, only because this is a conversation that's been had a bunch. Like we have a lounge. It's pretty well like stocked with, it's like got a whole kitchen and whatever and a bunch of couches and stuff. But we've noted that nobody uses it really. Like they go in to get a drink,
Right.
like they go to get a drink and they go whatever. But like at this new studio, the control rooms are really big and there's tons of room for, you could easily sit, 6, 7 people in here besides me comfortably. And so, no, we don't really have anything like that. Like people are pretty much always hanging out in the control room and like want to be part of what's going on. That's another thing too, I guess, is like, yeah, kind of like you mentioned, like with these are relatively fast paced recordings. Most people that come here don't have a ton of time. So like, there isn't really a lot of downtime, like,
Sure.
or maybe they're only here for a few days, and they want to be kind of in on the shit. So yeah, I don't know if we have a thing like that other than
That's
like
okay.
a coffee maker or whatever,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No. And I mean, that feature that you're talking about of just being like, oh yeah, we have a large control room. So it's not like, like 7 members of a band sitting on top of each other on
Right.
like, that's awful. Like
No,
no
there's
one
tons
wants
of
that.
room for people to hang out, which was part of the design of the space. The designers that did the studio are like crazy dudes, like real big on ergonomics, real big on physics, thankfully. And I'm thankful for them every day because I've never worked in a better sounding control room. And I've been in a bunch of their control rooms. They're all extremely even and similar, but like they make the best acoustic environments that I've worked in for sure.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
The last thing, and this is, like I said, more of a fun, like there's no wrong answers in this.
Sure.
And you don't have to feel the pressure to like, answer of bands that you've recorded or anything. But, when you are personally looking at the bands that were, either important to you as you were growing up from Northern California specifically, so you can either do NorCal deep cuts of bands you're like, dude, no one's heard of this band and we played shows with them or whatever,
Sure.
or great tour partners, or bands that you've recorded that,
Sure.
you can take that a million different directions. But, I give you the floor to express some of those NorCal bands that are important to you.
NorCal shout out bands?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. High on the list is a band. I mean, this is maybe I have to listen to it again to see how much nostalgia it is, but there was a
Sure.
band from here called How Fortunes Fall that was
Not familiar.
good
Okay.
friends. Like this would have been shit. I don't even know. 2000, I guess, maybe 99. It was kind of Shai Hulud inspired hardcore, but like with a lot of noodly, finger picked type guitar stuff. The guitar, these people all went on to be in bands that were awesome, like of all different styles and stuff like that. But I loved that band. And they were one of the first bands that showed me how valuable art can be from like a bunch of 16-year-olds or 17-year-olds. You know what I mean? Like, and like how like beautiful and deep the shit felt at the time. They were like a huge deal for me. They're friends of mine. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And when they were only a band for a very brief time. I think they were kind of out of like, it was a mush of like maybe San Mateo, Redwood City, Half Moon Bay people. And they only put out like an EP. It's probably, I think it might have a Bandcamp page. But when they did their reunion shows after they had, they got kind of locally popular or whatever, I got to play bass with them, and it was like, fuck yes, this is so sick.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not a bass player. I don't even like playing bass, but I was like, yeah, I'll play bass. Fuck yeah.
Whatever you guys need.
Yeah, whatever you need. So, I mean, like, I have a How Fortunes Fall tattoo on my arm. I mean, I love that crew. But yeah, I also have an Operation Ivy tattoo on my arm.
That's great.
I was a huge fan of Good Riddance back in the day.
Oh, hell yeah.
Like, yeah, Good Riddance, Fury 66, AFI, obviously Green Day, Operation Ivy, Rancid.
Yep.
like this is my entire upbringing, honestly. As I got a little older, Tom Waits, big,
Sure.
huge shout out to Tom Waits. I went when my brother and I did a band briefly after Comadre called Everybody Row, and we went to the studio up in Santa Rosa to record our 7-inch just because they had done like 10 years of Tom Waits records there. And like I needed to go stand in this room and record in this one room that was like a barn shed that they turned into into like a live room. And it was the fucking coolest thing ever. Just because Tom Waits recorded there. So I don't know, I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously being in the Bay, having grown up in the Bay and like being involved in the music scene for 30 years, there's an endless list of NorCal bands. I mean, yeah, especially like, and so many of them that I worked with and was friends with or got to play with or whatever. So like, I could rattle on about that for a really long time. I mean, Funeral Diner is another one. Under Night Sun was a big influence back in the day. But yeah, there's 100, you know what I mean? Like it's
an endless list. Yeah, no, I totally understand that. And very random aside, but like, did you ever go to shows in Salinas at Jim Dandy's? Are you familiar with?
I don't think I did. No.
Okay, that was more of a, I mean, for lack of a better term, like metalcore thing. But like Salinas, there was a band called Fate 13 that ended up like they played a ton of shows in Southern California. But anyways, Jim Dandy's. The reason I bring it up is because it like is to me it's so symbolic of a lot of what was happening in Northern California, where it was like you guys didn't have conventional venues besides Gilman or whatever.
Sure.
And so it's like this was literally a truck stop on the side of a road.
Whoa.
And it was like the dude, the owner of this truck stop was named Jim Dandy. And he would have like, I mean, whatever. It's like, I played there with like Poison the Well, like what, there's so many good shows there, but it was like, this feels so specific to Northern California of just like, hey, do you, not even, and it's like, not even everyone always goes into the VFW hall side of things, but this is like, oh yeah, it's like community center or whatever. Like I remember playing shows in Fremont of just being like,
oh yeah. You know what? Okay. Nerve Agents is another band. That was a big deal, but that makes me think. So back then, way less now, there was an unspoken line above San Jose in like that area where like, because there was a lot of metalcore and like rap rock and shit that was from down there, that it was like, it was kind of viewed by like the people in the peninsula, especially who were like just north of that. Like you didn't want to be lumped in with South Bay bands, like, because it was a weird no man's land of like, since then there's like Asian Man Records and like the insane hardcore scene that's going on down there with like bands like Gulch and Tsunami and like,
totally.
a dozen other bands. Real bass shit, of course. And so like, so it's totally different now, but like, but that's still in my brain. Somebody was like, yeah, you're from the South Bay, right? I'm like, no, I am not from the South Bay. But yeah, like it's become an amazing, place down there. Like so many Asian Man, bands have come through over the years, and like bands like Hard Girls and many others, but like Hard Girls is my favorite, San Jose band, but, anyway. Yeah.
I love that. You with the history that you have with that whole scene, like that's why I wanted to dig a little deeper, because this is just something I personally, I mean, am a fan of, and I just love your perspective on that, because it's exciting and engaging to hear how people's, especially just like you said, the dividing line of being like, oh yeah, we're not part of this scene. That's a whole different thing, bro.
Yeah. And you'd go down there eventually or occasionally, and it was like, where are we? Like, what's going on over here? Or like, but there was, I just the other, a couple months ago, a bandmate of mine, an old ex-bandmate was in town, and we ended up in Danville, which is like this weird little area and there was a spot called The Grange in Danville, which I think was a VFW hall or something like it, where they were doing like, that was like late 90s, early 2000s. Like you were out in like the middle of nowhere. Danville's like not near much, you know what I mean? But I remember going out there, and the shows were fucking awesome. Like so many kids showed up, and they were just like super pumped. It was like playing a show like in the Midwest, where you're kind of out of the major city, and like the people that are there are from all these different splintered scenes, but they're all together because they're just stoked that something's happening like in their town. But yeah, there's little little corners like that all over the Bay. It's a beautiful place to be.
There we have it. That was Jack Shirley from the Atomic Garden. Highly recommend you check out his whole body of work because he just does an incredible job documenting bands, especially like I really like the question that he responded to, or the way that he responded to the question when I was like, how do you weed out bands? Like, how do you decide what to work with? But just like the self-imposed restriction that he puts on bands being like, yeah, we're going to record this live. And that might be a little uncomfortable, but your record will benefit from it. And I just love that because truthfully, if you listen to any of his records, regardless of what the band sounds like, you will hear a consistency and a clarity behind the recordings that I just think is really special. So thank you very much, Jack, for making this happen. And next week, we're inching ever so close to episode 700 because, big round numbers. People like those things. But before we reach episode 700, I am thrilled to welcome a friend of mine, a person who has been a longtime supporter of this show, Michael Bingham, the vocalist from Spiritual Cramp, who, is known as America's premier rock and roll band. They're currently on tour. And Michael and I chopped it up a couple weeks before he left for this tour. And I just love him so much. I love his band. I love everything about what they have going on. So, we get to talk to Mr. Michael Bingham from Spiritual Cramp. Long time coming, but we did it. And it's awesome. So until then, please be safe, everybody.